My name is Jason S.C. Fung, and this is the Vanilla Club podcast. On today's episode, we're joined by none other than Alex Wu of Kuku Studios. Alex is the director of the Netflix hit In Your Dreams. If you've been lost at sea or trapped under a rock and you haven't seen this amazing movie, drop everything and go check it out. Do it for Baloney, Tony. Do it for the sleeper hit cameo of the year, Junbei. As founder and CEO of Kuku Studios, Alex is a business creative hybrid, something really special, and something he's very modest about, but I reckon is a key part of Alex's secret sauce. Alex is also a dear friend and classmate. We went to the Tisch School of Arts at New York University together. I don't have any beer pong or late night hijinks stories to share, unfortunately. But you know what? That's probably because Alex was on the cutting room floor, perfecting his craft all the way back to the last millennium. I can tell you that high school lore was that Alex turned down a number of full ride scholarship opportunities in order to attend the Tisch School at New York University. And to me, that speaks less to how good of a school NYU is, and more to how strong Alex's conviction that one day he would be destined to become a master filmmaker is. We also learn plenty of tidbits about the movie making process, or should I say, how Tony's Baloney is actually made, and how it really takes a village and a whole lot of love to make a feature film. Alex gives some specific examples of how particular jokes, right? And we love the particular jokes. This is what brings families. This is what makes it a family movie. How does he get these jokes into the film? Are they something that is a core element of the script, or do they somehow spontaneously think of something later on during the process and somehow monkey wrench it in there? He talks about that in specific detail. At the end of the day, Alex reminds us that in this increasingly AI awash with mediocre content media landscape, that quality matters and that storytelling and great storytellers are what parents should direct their attention to. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Go see the movie. Do it for Baloney, Tony. Enjoy.
All right. Well, I know you're a busy man. Thank you again so much for, taking some time just to share. I'm so pleased that we have a chance to just chat. What I'm trying to do with this series is we are trying to keep it simple here at the Vanilla Plantation. We're growing organic vanilla. We're looking to host some dinner parties and really portray sort of the simple life in a way. And with this series, we're just trying to reach out to cool people doing cool stuff who also engage with complexity in some way. And your story, again, being a director, you've got a credit for screenplay, you've got a credit for story. I mean, you're all over this thing, right? And I find it so interesting, and also knowing you personally, about how you manage those different roles. And again, how, all of those different pieces come together to this amazing final product. So with that, I just wanted to, number one, congratulate you. Phenomenal success. What a brilliant story. The animation is just beautiful, right? I mean, to think that Kuku is able to produce this, I mean, it's a world-class leading animation product with a beating heart of a story, combined with something that, it's heartfelt. And again, as someone who went through divorce, there's a lot of themes that many of us can relate to. So you've done something really special here, and I just wanted to congratulate you first on that.
Oh, Thanks, Jason. That means so much coming from you, because I know you are a man of great taste. And yeah, and you also are very sincere. And so, yeah, it just means a lot. So I really, yeah, it means a lot. Thank you.
So maybe you can just give us a little bit of background as to how it is that you manage these different roles. You're fully ensconced in the business world of, studio production, of content making, but at the same time, you are driving this story and with your amazing team, putting together this creative product that's using a different side of your brain.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I started the company so that I could make art, so that I could create films and television shows that I wanted to see, that I felt like nobody else was making. So our number one objective and mission is really to tell great stories. A lot of companies exist, for other reasons. I think, especially in the finance world, you're there to maximize profit. And that's not something of course we want profit. We want to be making money, but the primary objective is to make great films and great television shows. And so in many ways, even though I am wearing these sort of, or playing these sort of dual roles as like running the company and, directing and creating the shows and the stories that we produce, it's kind of the same thing. Like my number one job as the CEO of the company is to make great product, and to tell great stories. And so it sort of overlaps really well with my area of expertise and my craft, which is cinematic storytelling. And then running the business, that is all sort of like, a lot of it is common sense. You're basically building a team. You want that team to have a shared vision, right? You need to communicate that vision to people. You want them to be taken care of so that they don't have to worry about like the mundane challenges of life. So they can focus on, it's like Maslow's hierarchy, right? You want them to focus on like self-actualization, which is what art is. And in order to do that, you kind of have to have their base needs taken care of. And so the company is really just a vehicle to take care of our team's base needs so that they can really focus on doing the fun work, which is making art and telling stories. So that's kind of how I see it. I don't see them as sort of two separate roles. They're servicing the ultimate mission of our company, which is to tell great stories and really enrich people's lives through the stories that we tell. So that probably means I'm like not a very good businessman, but it's okay. I mean, that's, I started the company because I'm an artist first, I would say, and business person second, and that anything I do in business is really in service to my artistry.
That's great. Well, I mean, again, I think you should revise that statement about not being a good businessman, because, I mean, look at the numbers. I mean, this thing is, I mean, I'm popping up on Netflix. It's number one, number two. Yeah. I mean, the rollout. You guys have got to be happy, right? I mean, it's doing numbers. People are talking about it. I mean, I was having a conversation. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna catch up with my friend on the pod. Alex. I'm like, oh yeah, great. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch this movie on Netflix. I was like, okay, I'm interviewing him. And it's like amazing, because again, we had Corey Carson, right? Yeah. Which was a television show. Yeah. Amazing. It was 2 seasons.
We had, contract seasons. We had 2 contract seasons, but they broke up those 2 seasons into smaller mini seasons, just because Netflix's whole thing is binge releases, right? And I think that works really well for more mature content, but for kids, especially young kids, it doesn't, that distribution pattern doesn't work that well, because kids need to build routine in their lives, right? And so if you're doing binge releases of an entire season, they'll basically watch it in one weekend and then they'll forget about it and move on to the next thing. Whereas what you really want with young kids shows is like every day, same time, same channel, you're watching the show. So it becomes part of your daily routine. It's kind of like what we grew up with as kids, right? Like every day you come home from school and then you get to watch your cartoons before you do your homework, So that was a thinking behind. We had 6 seasons on platform, 3 holiday specials and 1 mini movie, but contractually that equated to about 2 regular seasons of content.
And this is your first feature.
Yeah, this is our first feature, which, is a big step up because I came from the feature world working at Pixar. When we started the company, we had to, obviously the goal was always to make a big budget animated feature film, but it's hard to go from nothing to there, right? So our first project was this preschool show, Go Go Corey Carson, and that was sort of our training ground as a company, and also a way for us to prove to our partners, primarily Netflix, that we could do it. We could take a concept, execute it really, really well, and do it on time and on budget. And so after Go Go Corey Carson, it did pretty well on their platform. We won 3 Emmys. We got nominated for 8. That's what gave them the trust and the interest to do something bigger with us. And that's how we got In Your Dreams greenlit.
And I think it's important. I kept the credits rolling, obviously, because we're friends. I know you. I was, it was great to see the Metallica, Hetfield, Lars gets a credit in there, which is so cool.
Yeah.
But, the credits are important. And, I was talking to my kids about it too, that there's Alex, and then look at all these people that comprise the company, all of your vendors, and, Quebec and Canada pops up in there, and it's a whole village, it's an amazing patchwork of all of these different people that, as a business person, right, you've got to allocate and arrange and schedule and make sure you get paid and so on. But you're combining that with a creative purpose, right? Trying to drive everyone towards this singular vision, right? And I think we should give you, again, I do, not to belabor the point, but I do want to give you credit for an amazing achievement. It's for a studio that, you're in your 6th year, something like that.
We're entering into our 10th year. So we
okay,
started,
10th. Okay. So as a young studio, to pull off a feature and to have this level of recognition for it, definitely hats off.
Oh, thanks.
Really.
Yeah, we're really proud of what we've done. There's a saying that people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they underestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years. And I think that's very much the case with our studio. I think when we started, you have so much excitement and so much energy starting a new company. You're like, yeah, let's go. We're going to conquer the world. And then the first year we had no business. Like, nobody bought any of our pitches. It was kind of grim. We were like, oh my gosh, maybe we're going to have to close this company down and just go back to our day jobs at Pixar. But we kept at it. And I never imagined that within that first decade, we'd be able to make a big budget, animated feature. And so, I think, we just feel tremendously lucky. So much of it is timing, not to, I'm doing the sort of the Asian modest thing where I'm saying like, oh, it wasn't us. We worked really, really hard. Right. And there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of talent, I think, that we brought to the table. But I cannot underestimate the impact that timing had. So, we started the company in 2016. That was when the streaming revolution was ramping up in the industry. And then the streaming wars sort of hit their peak at like 2019, 2018, 2020, leading into the pandemic. And it wasn't until maybe 2022, like sort of peak pandemic, when the sort of the streaming revolution or the streaming wars sort of ended and it crashed. But we were there as that wave was rising and the tide was rising. And so, we sort of, it's like surfing, right? You kind of caught the wave at the right time and we were able to ride that. So, yes, we put in a lot of work and we were really prepared, right? But there was also that element of just timing and the universe sort of like working together to give us that opportunity. Because I think if we tried to pitch that right now, the same movie, I think it'd be very difficult because the landscape has changed so dramatically. originals are not doing that well. Yeah, timing played a big role.
For sure. So let's talk a little bit about the medium. Again, you are well known as an amazing cartoonist, right? I mean, there's probably nothing more fun than going to dinner with Alex Wu and giving him a Sharpie with a blank piece of A4 paper, because the guy will basically dream up lots of caricatures in, somewhat flattering, somewhat maybe not as flattering profiles.
Mostly
and mostly but to see how skilled you are with freehand, it raises that question, right? Because one thing about film is that you're blending different media together, right? And that's in the final product, it looks like this one thing.
Yeah.
But even your choice of the music in the movie is great. I mean, of course, I love the Metallica, but the original stuff, and again, you've got so much, the visuals, and then you've got the story driving this engine, right? I mean, talk a little bit about the medium, right? In terms of like, how do you put these pieces together? I mean, is it that you just have this vision and then you just find people to sort of execute it? Or is it something where you might have inspiration here, or somebody takes the lead with that, and then you're more of a kind of coordinator? Give us a little bit of insight into that.
I mean, it's a great question, and that's what makes me love film so much, is that it's a collaboration and a combination of so many different art forms, right? So you have music, you have photography, which is like the camera, right? You have painting, you have animation, you have acting and performance, choreography, you have timing, which is what editing is, right? You have writing, and the lines of dialogue that characters give and they say, and then you have narrative structure and story, right? So it's all these different art forms combined into one art form, and it delivers so much impact because it can draw from all these different sources, and that's why I love art so much. Like Brad Bird has this saying that he says, "I love art," or he says, I think he says, like, "I love all forms of art, but I love cinema the most because it combines all of them together." I'm totally butchering that quote, but that's the gist of it, and I totally agree with him. I think that's what the power of cinema is, and that's what I've trained in. I mean, I worked at Pixar for 10 years. I went to film school. We went to NYU together. And that's what they teach you. They teach you how to use this. Essentially, it's a language, right? Film is a language that's always constantly evolving. It has a grammar to it. There's syntax. And you have to learn that language so that you can tell a story through that medium, through that language. And so as a director, your job is like, it's a little bit of both of what you described. Yes, you have to have a very clear vision of what you want, because that's how you can get just people on board with your film. Because a lot of these artists, especially the ones that are really talented, they have options. They can work anywhere. They can work on any project. So you have to have a very clear, compelling vision to convince them to help you with your film and tell your story. They also have to be captured and connected to the story. If they don't feel like this is an interesting story, it's something that they don't have a personal connection to, or they can't find a way in, they're not going to do their best work. And so a lot of my job as a director is really to tell that story in any which way that I can get people on board, right? And then a lot of it is actually also being inspired by the people that I work with. My production designer is Steve Pilcher. He did Soul. He production designed Soul. He production designed Finding Dory. He production designed Brave. And his eye is so sharp, and it's way sharper than mine. He can see things that I can't see, and him and his art team, they expanded the scope of what I thought was visually possible with this film. Like, I had an idea of what I wanted the film to look and feel like, and then he took it and he plussed it, right? And I saw what he was doing. I thought, oh my God, that's even better. Let's do that. And then I could see sort of his vision for it. I could get onto it, and then we sort of would collaborate and build that vision for the look of the film together. Score for the film, John Debney is our composer. I don't know anything about music. I love music, but I don't know how to write it. So the way that I worked with him is I would just tell him what I wanted to feel in each sequence, what the emotions that the characters were going through, and then he would translate that into music. And so a lot of directing is it's almost like being a conductor for an orchestra, right? Like you have all these incredible musicians who can play all these different instruments. And my job as the director is to utilize all of their really unique, specific skills to make this magnum opus of an opera. You know?
Absolutely. And do you, in terms of your process, like there are some totally laugh out loud moments in this film. I love the Shining reference. I mean, that was just like, my kids are like, "Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing?" I was like, "It's funny. He gets it." So I'm curious as to, do you have like a line, right? Are there cases where you just have one little look, one little thing that you then say, okay, that's going to be there. And then, you know what? I'm going to talk to all of these different people in the orchestra and we're going to find a way to weave it in. Or is it more sort of top down and you stick to the story and it weaves together that way? I mean, I'm curious as to how often the bottoms up approach, where you just get this random idea and then other things build up around that.
Yeah. It's sometimes it's both, it just depends on the joke. So the Shining joke, that came from a director friend of mine named Mike Rianda, who did like a comedy pass on the film. And I guess he was always kind of scared of his grandma. I don't know why, but he worked in the joke that Elliot would have nightmares about his grandmother. He had the whole idea of like, here's Granny, right? Which is a reference to The Shining. So then I thought, okay, well, if we're going to do that, let's really reference it and have them running through like a maze.
Labyrinth.
Yeah, the labyrinth. And then have her poke out of, one of those hedges. And so, it started off with like a seed of an idea of like a kid being scared of his grandma, right? And that line, here is Granny. And then I built off of that and said, okay, well, let's actually really lean into it. There's a joke about one of the best jokes that people love is when Elliot says, "It's magic," and he like hides behind his bed to try and disappear, and his butt crack is showing, right? And that was one of our editors, Nick Kenway. He came up with that joke, and we all thought it was hilarious. And when we got it into animation, they animated it just as it was boarded, but it ended with him hiding behind the bed, and then Stevie would say, "I could see your crack, Houdini," right? But I thought, oh, wouldn't it be funny if he actually like tried to crawl away to try and hide because Stevie can see him, like his illusion, his magic didn't work. But then he doesn't go far enough and he can still see him. He's still there. Right? And so that's one of these things where it's like, it started off with like a great joke. And then I was like, okay, how can we plus this once we get it down the pipeline? And so you're always trying to, at every stage, plus things, right? Like make it funnier, make it more emotional, make it more dramatic, improve the action. This is a really interesting joke that we added really, really late in the game. Do you know when Stevie, she sees that text from mom at Polly's Pizzeria and she realizes, oh no, this is bad. We time cut to her sleeping in bed and it's like raining outside. And then Elliot comes in totally oblivious. He's got that giant Polly's plushie and he's like, "Hey, what's up, turd nugget?" She totally ignores him. He's like, whatever. He throws the Polly like plushie onto the floor and he starts drinking his like green juice or his like his energy drink as he's walking to his bed. And originally that scene, there was a lot of silence from when he was like entering into the room and going all the way to his bed. And there was something like empty about it. And it was too heavy, the moment. And so I needed some sort of like comedy lift. but the animation was done. We were already doing the sound mix. And so you couldn't go back and do animation. The only thing we could do was add sound. So I had the idea of like having Elliot hum the Don't Ya song as he's walking to the
Oh, yes, yes. No, I was gonna lead with that. Don't you?
Yeah.
Right? Don't you?
So I called my actor, Elias. I was like, hey, this is a weird request, but can you just like go into your closet and record on your phone, like just hum the Don't Ya song? And so we recorded a couple times. He sent that in. We laid it on over the scene, and it just magically made it funny because you were calling back to that weird Don't Ya scene with the animatronics. But if you look really closely, his lips are not moving. And so we timed the Don't Ya with his like pulling the bed sheets off, right?
Right.
But he doesn't, his lips don't move, but it totally works because of the accent of Don't Ya, right? And so that's another idea of like a joke that came in very, very last minute, that you're just looking for an opportunity to like get some comedy in there or bring some levity. So yeah, so the answer to your question is like, it really depends. Like sometimes you have jokes that we've written and they're really, really funny on the page. And then sometimes it's like comes really late in the game. And you find a way to make it funnier.
One of my favorites, I think my hands down favorite is and you got the wrong game, the game for the wrong console.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. It's so esoteric. And again, if kids are like used to playing like on Steam and whatever, I play on my Steam Deck, I play on the PC, whatever, they're like, what are you talking about? Right. Yeah. But thank you again for getting these dad type jokes in, like for 80s and 90s kids. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, that was a Mike Rianda joke. I think we all grew up with that, right? Like, and it's such a parent thing to do. Like, you get them the game, but you buy.
We would go to your house to play N64.
Yeah, yeah. That's I'm glad you like that joke.
I love that joke. I love that joke because it hits this thing, because I would imagine this kind of goes in. This is where you wear the two hats between creative and business, because you've got to bring families in. You've got to bring the dads in. You've got to bring in multi-generational stuff and probably cross-cultural stuff too, right? Like, talk a little bit about that. I mean, is that in the back of your mind too? I mean, Netflix has, seamless global distribution. Are you thinking in certain, when you write a joke or you write a scene, how is this going to play in this market?
Yeah. I try not to think about that too much, because I don't think I have a lot of like global perspective, right? I mean, I am a third culture kid like you. I grew up half my life in the States, half my life in Asia, but and those are big regions, right? But it's not like, I don't have the African point of view. I don't have like the Middle Eastern point of view. I don't have the European point of view or the South American. So for me to ask those questions, I don't think I could even answer them properly. So the only thing I can do is just try to tell the story that I think would entertain myself and the audiences that I know, and would appeal to the points of view and perspectives that I know. And then you just hope that it's more universal than specifically to American culture or to Asian culture. The one thing in this film that I was very, very deliberate about, and I don't know if you noticed this or appreciated it, but our characters are Hapa, right? Like, they're mixed race. And that was really deliberate on my part, because I mean, I'm not mixed race, but my co-director is white American. And I felt like, because we directed this film together, it felt like it would be a really good representation of both of our like specific sort of cultural and ethnic heritages. And then I also haven't seen a lot of mixed characters in animated films. I don't think I've seen any, actually. And so that was something that I was really excited about putting into this film. And I thought it could also add to the marital and the relational conflict that the parents have and the different points of view that they have. Like, having different cultural points of view could sort of bolster the different like the tension that they had, and the different philosophies they have towards family and towards life. And I also did not want to make this story about Stevie's like ethnic identity. Like, there's a lot of stories that are about minority characters dealing with their minorityness or their otherness. And I think it's valid. There's room for stories like that. I think that speaks to a lot of people, but I don't think it speaks to everybody, because not everybody feels like they're an other. And then also, I think, it can actually increase the sense of otherness, right? When you have like let's say a minority character, and they're almost their identity is completely defined by the fact that they're an other, and they're trying to navigate and reconcile that. And I wanted our characters to feel like they were dealing with universal human problems, right? When I was growing up in the States, I did feel like a minority. And that was a big part of how I saw myself. But when I moved to Hong Kong, I suddenly felt like I was part of the majority, and my ethnic heritage or my cultural heritage, it sort of went away. I never even thought about it. And there's something really empowering about sort of defining the new normal, or defining redefining what default is. And so that's what I really tried to do with Stevie and Elliot. I didn't want their, specific or unique ethnic heritage to be their defining characteristic.
I think that's a really excellent treatment that you have in the film, because it's in there, but you're not hitting people on the head with it.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear little glimpses. There's little vignettes of it. The Ting, the name. It's sort of, I guess Ting is sort of, it's like Lee, right? It's like Sarah Lee.
Yeah.
I mean, is it Ting, or is it Ting, or, something? It's in there if you're listening, but it's not sort of
at the
slamming it down someone's throat, And then at the same time, I think that and Simu Liu does a phenomenal job with the voice acting, but with the dad character, I love how he's wearing the Minnesota Vikings shirt, a little reference, to your roots.
Yeah.
But it I think presents those issues in a way that for viewers who are more interested in leaning into that, they can sort of enjoy that aspect. But as you said, if someone doesn't want to have that layer, they don't have to.
Yeah. I mean, it's also subtle things like in the opening, like Stevie is about, she has like her straight A's, right? And she's got that one B minus or B plus, and like that's such an Asian thing, right? Like your parents, they're like, that's the one thing they look at. They're like, well, why didn't you get an A there? There's the lucky cat, that she sort of like high fives at the beginning. There's just like subtle little nods to her sort of cultural heritage, but it doesn't define her. It's not like the primary identity issue that she's dealing with. Her primary identity issue is, this sort of need for perfection. And that I think is universal, especially with young people today, especially young girls. I think there's so much pressure on young girls to be perfect, to look perfect, to like have the perfect life and have the perfect family. And that's what I wanted to sort of tackle thematically with this film.
And I think you give a lot of room, again, going back to that multi-generational point. It's something that I watched it once with the kids, and I watched it once myself. And when I watch it myself, I'm not in tune with the sort of kid laughs, right? And I can watch it as an adult, and I'm picking up different things, and thematically, there's the idea of perfection. There's the idea of, would I rather live in this sort of perfect dream world, or would I rather confront reality and find beauty in that, in the confrontation of what's real. And those are evergreen themes. Those are evergreen themes that, again, for me, I really resonated with that, and I think you've, people are going to go back to this film and, have a chance to rewatch it, and find that, okay, it's not something 2025, it's a classic, juxtaposition. I think you've done really well with that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I mean, I always, the films that I love are always timeless, and so I sort of aspired to make a film that would withstand that test of time. So we'll see. I mean, it just came out 2 weeks ago, so we'll see.
I have a lot of confidence, and I think, you mentioned NYU. When we were students at NYU, at Tisch, I took Philip Perkis's class. I don't know if you might have taken his class, but in art history, and he said something. He had a whole unit on commercial art in his class in art history. And I don't know why. I mean, it's funny sometimes what sticks, right? Like what you remember, but his whole thing was, don't be afraid of embracing commercial art, right? And he was talking, you were in film, I was in photography. But again, a lot of fine artists struggle with that, right? It's sort of, well, what's the line? And some of them, the more purist types really struggle with it. And I think what Philip Perkis was saying is that if you take the pyramids in Egypt, that's commercial art, right? It's done for commercial reason. They use slave labor, but it stands as an achievement of human artistic flourishing, right? The Sistine Chapel. I mean, you could use many in architecture, in food and cuisine, So I'm curious as to how do you place what you do in terms of its artistic component? Because I'll just say myself, I think it is art. It definitely, it absolutely is art. You should be commercial, and at the same time, I don't think that necessarily compromises its artistic value.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. I came from, a company that mastered the, both sides of that equation, right? Like Pixar, for the longest time, they were a commercial juggernaut, meaning their films would constantly break box office records. They were, I think they went, I don't know, it was like 20 films without having a single loss, which is unheard of in Hollywood, history. And yet they were also artistically and critically acclaimed films. So I don't think that it's a false dichotomy, I think, to say that you're either art or you're commercial. I think the best is when you blend both worlds. I mean, there's, Martin Luther King Jr. talks about like creative synthesis as like where life is at its best, right? You have sort of two opposing sort of concepts or ideas. And it's through the synthesis of those two things where you create something new. And that's what I think, commercial art is. You're taking commercialism, you're taking commerce, you're taking art, and you're combining the two. And when you do it well, that's the sort of the best creative synthesis that you can ask for. The point of art is what is for people to consume it, right? To view it, to be impacted by it. At least that's my viewpoint. So if you make an amazing film that nobody wants to watch but yourself, I don't know, it's a little self-serving, I think, to me, art should be, like everything else in life, an act of love, right? And so it's like when you're cooking for somebody, you're trying to find a way to tangibly put your emotions, your affection, your feelings of love for them in a vessel that they can accept and receive, right? And so film is the same way to me. It's like it's like all these hundreds of artists that we've all collaborated together. We poured in so much love and talent and time and energy because we want to love the audience and we want them to be able to receive that love through the form of a cinematic story. And so, if nobody sees it, nobody's there to receive the love, And so I think that's why I think it's a false dichotomy. I think, of course, you can get work that is purely commerce and there's no artistic value at all. Then you can have stuff that has like, quote unquote, a lot of artistic value, but nobody will consume it. Nobody will experience it. That's pointless to me. So you've got to find a way to blend the two.
Absolutely. So what are some of the stories that are being undertold, according to you?
Well, I mean, I can only really, I think, speak to Hollywood and sort of the American movie industry because that's the industry I know well. Obviously, original stories there's a dearth of original storytelling right now. It's kind of, I mean, it's almost become cliche for people to talk about it because it's been happening for so long. Um, but yeah, I mean, a lot of great filmmakers have talked about this and they've sort of decried it. Like Scorsese talks about these Marvel superhero movies as like theme park rides, and George Lucas has been talking about how, the profit incentive has sort of taken over and removed any kind of artistic value in a lot of modern cinema. And sometimes they feel like old men yelling at the sky, but there is some merit to what they're saying. It's probably not as dire and as tragic as how they're portraying it, but there's just tons of sequels out there. It's a lot of franchise stuff. And yeah, original story. When we were growing up in the 80s, I mean, that was like such a heyday and the 70s was such a heyday for cinema. I mean, the movies that I really love are films like these like character dramas that are sort of like mid-budget, like $30 to $50 million, character dramas. Like, I don't know, Rain Man is one of my favorite films. I talked to Tom Cruise the other day at the Governor Awards.
I saw that. You mentioned that, meeting your heroes.
Yeah, I talked to him for like 15 or 20 minutes. It was so surreal. But I told him how much I loved Rain Man and how much it impacted this film because of how authentically they captured that sibling relationship, right? And the love between those two siblings. And I wanted to capture that in our film. And I think when I told him that, his eyes kind of lit up because he's mostly people know him for like, Maverick and Top Gun, and the fact that I mentioned this, it's not an obscure film, obviously. It's like a very famous film, won a bunch of Oscars, but it's like a small character drama. I think he got really excited about that. And so we talked about Rain Man for like 15 minutes and he was telling me how it was made, all the challenges that they went through, how Spielberg at one point was supposed to direct it, but he dropped out and they ended up with Barry Levinson because Barry was like, we can do this. We can start shooting in 8 days. So yeah, like those types of films are not really being made anymore. And it's so sad to me because a lot of those films, they're so deep, right? And they have so much, I don't know, there's stories that like, they don't have maybe a ton of spectacle, but they have tons of like emotional truth, and they're really poignant, and they really they make us feel more deeply human. They tell us and they teach us what it means to be human. And that's what I think art should be doing at its, at its best. It's like helping us get in touch with our humanity.
So it's kind of a paradox though, right? In the sense that the technology is now much more accessible, right? So in theory, we should be seeing like a Cambrian explosion of lots of these mid-budget films, right?
Yeah.
But in fact, what's happening is it's all shifting towards these highly scalable, more predictable hits engine type of serialized franchise films, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like Fast and Furious is talking about people banging the drum. I mean, that's like the classic example, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really just the profit motive, right? I mean, when you make a movie like Rain Man, you can't really make a sequel. I mean, you could, but it probably wouldn't be very good. You think about a movie like Kramer versus Kramer, which is like a fantastic film. You're not going to make a sequel out of that, and you can't really sell a lot of toys. Can't sell merchandising from that. So that's really been the thing that sort of shaped modern cinema is the idea of being able to franchise tell subsequent stories, so you can build off of the momentum and the success of the first film, and then licensing and merchandising, right? Like cross-media exploitation or cross-business exploitation. And so that's what these studio executives are thinking about when they decide which movies to greenlight. And I think their hope is, well, you could tell a great humanistic story within the framework or within the package of a big franchise. And that's true, you can. But oftentimes it doesn't happen. People get so sort of enamored by the the sort of the icing on the cake or the candy that they forget the nutrition.
Definitely. And when you talk about nutrition, there's a lot of fast food.
Yeah.
Right. And again, that is something that as a parent, in terms of food, as a family, we're pretty anti-fast food, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's hard for that well, we should probably try to apply that same logic to other spheres of their lives,
Yeah.
right? And that's where I think in your dreams and what you guys are doing is such a breath of fresh air, because you're trying to give kids quality consumption.
Yeah.
And it's very evident in the amount of care. One is a movie, the next one's a movie, but yeah, you can go on YouTube and find tons of content that any parent within 10 seconds can look at, and yeah, this is farmed content that is formulaic and so on and so forth. The amount of effort that goes into creating quality is vastly more. But I think my sense of it, right, speaking of as a parent, is that there's a lot of parents out there who are looking for stuff that is high quality, right?
Yeah.
And that if we're going to look at screen time for kids, wouldn't it make sense to say, okay, if you're going to have this screen time and there's this much of it, wouldn't I prefer to fill it with more quality stuff?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, again, it goes back to that idea of like, what's the purpose of what you're doing, as a company. For us, we want to try to embody love through through the medium of film and television. And if you want to like love somebody, you want to give them something that's good for them, right? You don't want to give them junk.
Absolutely. And something that Tom Cruise has talked about at length is again how we like a movie like Mission Impossible. I mean, the whole series is designed to be seen in a theater.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big screen experience. Is there, because one thing is when you're on the small screen, to me, it's not just the small screen, it's the accessibility of multitasking.
Yep.
Right. Which really kind of shreds the experience. Maybe I'm kind of a purist, but what are your thoughts on this kind of low level consumption on the small screen that we're seeing in a pervasive way?
Oh, I mean, it's tragic. It breaks my heart. It's like, so much of the experience of something is the framing, right? And it's the setting. So, imagine going to like the French Laundry, right? And but then, you're sitting on like, plastic tables and plastic chairs, and nobody's serving it in the right way, and people are rude, and it's loud and distracting. You're sitting next to a highway. I mean, your experience of the food would just be drastically affected, right? Or you think about a painting, if you don't put it in the proper frame, and you just put it in the corner, nobody's going to value it, So I think seeing something in the proper setting, in the proper framing, really changes your experience of it. So, they've done those like YouTube social experience where they have like a world-class sort of violinist, right, who just the other night played at Carnegie Hall to a sold-out audience of like 1,000 people who paid like $500 to see her play, and then she goes to the subway and she plays the same thing, and nobody even pays her any attention, right? And it is, the product itself is the same, but the experience of the product is vastly different based off of the setting, based off of the framing. And so, yeah, I really want everybody watches the film to watch it on the biggest screen possible with undivided attention, in a group setting with like, total strangers that they're sitting next to, because that experience is really unique. But again, it's hard to fight the base desires of humankind. I mean, people are just, it's easy to just stay at home and turn on the television and watch Netflix and not have to go out, find parking, pay for parking, get the kids, get a babysitter if you're watching movies on your own, or if you're taking the kids, buying popcorn. It just becomes really expensive, right? And so I understand the shift towards a frictionless experience, but you're kind of losing something in the process when you do that. So
I missed the theatrical release window, but maybe at some point, when you do a takeover somewhere of a theater, we can enjoy this movie in the big screen, because I mean, some of those scenes, when they're first meeting the Sandman and, just the grains of sand. And I just love to see some of like the pixelations, happening. And I mean, it's so like, talk about the choreography and the photography of that. I mean, it was just amazing.
Oh,
amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, I really hope you get to watch it on the big screen. There's so much detail that we put in there. And you really can't see it unless you're seeing it on, like a DCP projection with, theatrical Dolby surround sound, 7.1 Dolby Atmos. We mixed it for Dolby Atmos. So there's a 7.1 soundtrack on there. And then even just watching things with a bunch of strangers, there's something really unique about that experience, that having an emotional experience with people that you've never met before is really special. That's one of the big reasons I love going to the movies, is like you feel the emotions of the crowd, and it heightens everything. It amplifies all of the emotions. It amplifies the comedy. It amplifies the depth of feelings that you have. And experiences are what make life. It's what makes up life. It's like all these little experiences that you have. So wouldn't you want to maximize those experiences?
Wouldn't you? I mean, absolutely, because you're taking us on this emotional journey, right? Yeah. And it's one thing. I mean, from the filmmaker's perspective, it's got to be this surreal experience. Like, if you observe people watching your film, right? I mean, you must be like, wait a second. Oh, is he reacting that way? Oh, is he scared enough? Is he sad enough? Because I'm thinking, just observing my kids watching it, they're going through they're in the happy dream and everything like this. And then it turns to nightmare. And then there's an avocado that's disembowels itself. And they were like, ooh, ooh. And then there's a kind of thing that goes up here. And it's this, it's amazing the amount of layers that go into that, right? Because it's on one hand, and it's like, wow, I mean, now that we're talking about it and I'm thinking about it, I was like, wow, you really took me on a ride. You really did. It was real theater. I really got into it.
Oh, great. That's great. Yeah. That's one of the best parts about being like the filmmaking process, is like when you get to show it to people and you watch it in a room of people you've never met before, and you just see how it affects them. It can be the worst experience if the audience doesn't react. But fortunately, every screening that I've been to so far, people have loved it. They're laughing at all the right moments. They're crying at all the right moments. You could just feel the emotions that they're going through. And it's actually the only way I can watch the movie. Like, I can't really watch it on my own, because it's just work to me, and I just see every shot, and it's so disembodied from the actual context of what it should be, because I look at that shot and I just remember all the meetings we had about a shot and all the challenges we had with that shot, or the things that I wasn't able to get right. And so it doesn't mean what it should mean to like a fresh pair of eyes, a fresh observer, right? But when I do watch it with people, I can suddenly see it through their eyes. I can see it fresh. And that's the best experience for me.
And because it's animation, you don't get anything for free, right? Yeah. These are your words. I'm reflecting back something you've told me, years back. It's like photography. Yeah, you go landscape. Ansel Adams, beautiful. Yeah. Yes, he's the best landscape photographer, but he didn't make Half Dome.
Yeah.
You've got to make Half Dome.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't matter if it's like boring scene, a scary scene, emotional scene. You're the guy that's got to make the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty and the challenge of animation, is you can do anything, but you have to make it if you want to do it. And so every single thing on screen you see was made by somebody. You didn't get anything for free.
And there's an amazing amount of craft that goes into that, and I think it's hats off to you. I hope people just continue keeping this movie up where it is at the charts, because it is such a quality product that we need right now. I mean, so much of what we consume is low grade, where it's this passive consumption, right? It's this unthinking snacking that we are doing, and we're doing in so many different areas of life. I think when I think about giving my kids that screen time, I think I have a responsibility as a parent, right? To, it's one thing that Warren Buffett talked about, why Disney stock is a winner over time, because parents can just tune out and just say, it's Disney, right? It's Disney. You don't need to do anything investigative as a parent. You didn't need to check it. You don't need to do this. It's Disney. It's good. Let them watch it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what you've got here is, well, it's akin to that. It might even be better than that, because you're an upstart and you can tell some stories that maybe fit a little bit out of the corporate box. So I'm just, it's so great to see you find this like, just come out with this amazing product. It connects with the market. People are loving it. It's just a fantastic thing.
Oh, thanks, Jason. Yeah. Again, it just means so much coming from you.
No, because I remember you mixing those Scarface videos back in the day, and at NYU. I know you from, and we were at NYU at this like amazing transition of analog to digital.
Yeah.
Right? And imagine like so many of the 3D tools now, they were at their total infancy at that time. Right. Yeah. Like you've seen this, like young guys, young gals who come into the scene right now, they take some of these things for granted, but you were there when this was quite primitive, right? Digitally, at least.
Yeah, it wasn't, I mean, really it started in the 80s when we were still kids. I mean, that's when, Ed Catmull and his team so Pixar used to be a division of Lucasfilm. And they were sort of researching what was possible with computer generated imagery. And then obviously Toy Story came out in 95, I think. Yeah, 1995. And that was, just a revolution in terms of, that was the start of the computer generated sort of analog to digital revolution. And we were in college, it was 99, we graduated in 2003. So at that point, it had already started gaining a lot of momentum. I mean, Pixar was already on a roll. They made like Monsters Incorporated, Finding Nemo, Incredibles. So the technology had come already a long way. But yeah, if you look back at those movies from like 2002, 2001, they look still kind of janky. they kind of look janky. It's because the technology has come so far. But it was, they had already, the technology had already been in development for probably at least a decade and a half, 2 decades already. So
yeah, well, but again, having said that, the storytelling, I'm sure there's narrative developments, in terms of like the industry standard of like how complex some of these narratives are these days. That's developed, but the essence of a good story, I think there's some classical elements to it, and you demonstrate that in this movie. And that sometimes it's, I would imagine when you talk to a younger person who's maybe looking to enter the industry, or they just entered the industry, they're all about, the latest thing, the technology and things like that. But your story also demonstrates that, well, actually, that's probably not good enough, because you've got to have a command of the classics. And, at the end of the day, you're storytellers.
Yeah. I mean, that's my sort of point of view on storytelling, is that there are these sort of universal forms, right? That transcend time, they transcend culture. Not everybody thinks that. Some people think that stories, are constantly evolving and narrative form is constantly evolving. But I take a little bit more of a traditional sort of point of view. I think like all good stories from the beginning of, time when they were first, when human beings were first telling them and first writing them down. There is a consistent form across all different stories throughout time and throughout culture, at least the ones that have stood the test of time. And that's what I try to conform my stories to, is tapping into that universal, transcendent narrative form. So yeah, and then the execution. What's interesting is like Toy Story, the first Toy Story, it celebrated its 30th anniversary this year, and I went to a screening recently, and yeah, the imagery looks pretty janky. But you still get caught up in the story. It still works as a film because the characters are so well realized. The storytelling is so good. The story structure and the form of the story I think it taps into that sort of platonic ideal. So yeah, I think really at the end of the day, that's really what matters. That's what's going to create something that stands the test of time. It's not just the aesthetics and the look and the technology. It's really the timeless narrative, like the timeless story.
So you mentioned the Asian student, Asian son. What were your parents said?
So this is really interesting because so much of this film was autobiographical. You said you're a child of divorce. My parents have not divorced, but they've separated many times and they've come back together. So when I was like 6 or 7 years old, my mom left for a little while. She ended up coming back. And a lot of this film is based off of that experience. Like Stevie watching her mom pull out of the driveway and leaving, like that was almost shot for shot, like from my childhood. I can remember watching my mom leaving, pulling out of the driveway and driving off and feeling like, oh my God, like my whole life and my whole family's got to, is about to change. She ended up coming back in college. She left again. She went to LA. She moved there for 3 years. My dad was still in Hong Kong. She ended up coming back. And then when I was making this movie, they almost got divorced again. And because it was during COVID, and I think my dad was home a lot because of remote work. And I think he just got on my mom's nerves or something. I don't know what it was, but yeah. And then I had to fly back to Hong Kong and like help them mediate the situation. And it was so ironic because I was making a movie about a kid trying to keep her family together while I was doing that in real life. And I didn't tell my parents that this film was based off of that, our family, until I had to, which was like in June when we went to the Annecy Film Festival and we launched our teaser. And of course I had to talk about the origins and the inspiration of this story. And I didn't want them to read about it in the newspaper. So I had to sit them down and talk to them and tell them, hey, just so you guys know, this was inspired by our family and kind of the challenges that you and mom went through. I hope you're okay with it because I can't change it now. And, to my surprise, my mom was actually quite okay with it. Even though, she's the one that has sort of consistently tried to leave, and she could very much be seen as the villain of the story, but she was like, I get it. I get this is your art. You're taking from your life and you're turning it into art and it's inspiration. So my dad was a little less comfortable with it. I think, he's like, he's an traditional Asian man. He was like, why are you airing out our dirty laundry to the world? And I'm like, oh, it's not our dirty laundry. It's just, I think it's an important story that like helps people know that families aren't perfect, and that's okay. Like getting through the messiness of life with the people that you love, like that's actually what life is about. And that's kind of the message of the movie. And so at the end of the film, like mom and dad, they come out of the house and they're like carrying that final box and it says fragile on there. I mean, that's like a metaphor for their relationship, right? And then they're trying to put the box back onto the U-Haul truck and they're like not on the same page. Mom's going left, dad's going right. You can tell like they're not quite like aligned yet. And then finally they get, the van all packed. They get into, the two cars, they drive off into the horizon and it looks like, okay, we're going to get, everything's set. We're going to get our happy ending.
It jumps out the back.
Yeah. The tailgate opens up, everything falls out. And you're just like, so that's just life. Like you just never know. Like it's always going to be messy and it's always going to be imperfect. but they come together and they like clean the mess up together. And so that was really inspired by like, how many times my parents and my family has been like, sort of ebbing and flowing. But it doesn't really matter. Like, we're always going to be a family, no matter where my parents are, no matter what their official status is. We're like always a family, an imperfect family, but still a family. And so, yeah, that's what I really wanted to communicate with this film. And I thought it was just a needed sort of, message for a lot of kids out there who are dealing with families that are far from perfect. I mean, whose family is perfect,
Yeah, definitely. And the reason I think it's also timely is that there are a lot of sort of magic pills that are on offer in different forms, different guises, for you to sort of just, imagine another reality. It's perfect, and don't do this, and everything like that. And that's where I think the messaging, is really like, it's a classic story, but it's really of the moment, in the sense that I think a lot of people need to hear that, and I think it is resonating with a lot of people, but it should, because it's a good story. You're a wholesome guy at the end of the day, right? I mean, it's good. It's good. And there's so much vice out there, that I think weaving a story together that has so many different elements, and it can be edgy in certain ways, and it can push the envelope in certain ways. Some of the humor is like, as an adult, like I was saying, watching it myself, I was like, damn, this is funny. It's really funny. Just like, if you just took out the sort of family movie thing, it's funny. It's just funny.
Yeah.
You're pushing some buttons.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I mean, I love laughing. So a lot of this movie makes me laugh.
Yeah, no, that's great. So what's up next for you guys? This is like the question a lot of people have. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of top secret stuff, but like, is there anything that you can share with us, like that we could whet our appetites a little bit?
Not too much. I mean, we are, as a company, we are in development pretty far along on this original kids show that my co-founder Stanley Moore and one of our directors Jason Heaton have developed, and it's really compelling. It's I can't wait for people to see it. So we're hoping to get a green light on that sometime next year. And it'll take us like 2 years to produce it. So we won't see anything till probably 2027 at the earliest, I would say. And then right now I'm solely focused on promoting the movie. I mean, we're really gunning for an Oscar nomination. And so, there's a lot of press and promotion I have to do over the next month, because voting starts on January 16th. So I need to do everything I can as a director to try and get people to see it and to like it. My friend Pete Sohn, who directed Elemental and Good Dinosaur over at Pixar, he told me when I finished the film, I was like, Pete, I finally finished, I'm done. And he's like, oh, you did half the job. I'm like, what do you mean half the job? He's like, well, yeah, half the job of a director is like making the movie. The other half is getting people to watch it. I was like, what? Yeah. So that's the part of the job that I'm on right now. For the last 3 months, I've been, traveling around. I mean, we've been trying to schedule this call forever, and I just haven't had time because I'm just in a different city every 4 or 5 days. Doing press, talking to, outlets and journalists and trying to get them, to spread the word about our movie. So that's going to go on till the end of the year. And then if we are lucky enough to get the nomination, then it's, you go hard on trying to get the win. So I think until March, if we're lucky, I will be focused on this only.
As you should. It's just fantastic. Everyone should go out and watch this. Watch it with your family. Watch it by yourself. Watch it on as big a screen as you possibly can. Get that Dolby Atmos experience. Blast the sound. Just dive in with Baloney Tony. I think the only downside to this movie is there's probably going to be a generation of kids who are stuffing their stuffed animals with live processed meat. I think 2 years from now, 3 years from now, there's going to be some FDA warning. Do not, if you buy a Baloney Tony doll, do not actually stuff it with bologna.
Yeah. Yes, that
A possible black mold contamination.
yeah.
risk.
When we do sell bologna Tonys, we should just give people like a fake slice of bologna that they can stuff in.
I hope so. Yeah.
Bologna.
Oh, that's great. I love the X'd out eye. I'm gonna get one. I should, like a Hong Kong cab driver, right? Like with the little things. I need a bologna Tony. Whenever I get, stressed, I'm just gonna like grab the bologna and I don't know, maybe like take a bite, sniff it. Like the bologna Tony's supposed to be sniffed, right?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be not just cuddled, but it's like a full sensory experience.
Yeah.
That I don't know about the muffin though. I think I'm more a bologna Tony guy.
Yeah. Delilah is the perfect
Princess.
Yeah. It's not that divisive. I mean, I've only heard a couple people like they don't like that character, or they think it's just too weird. But almost everybody, every screening I've been in, Delilah gets one of the biggest laughs.
Really?
Yeah. People love her. She's just so weird.
Oh, that's great. Well, Al Wuman, Alex, director. It's so great to share. We need to reconnect in person as soon as your schedule permits.
We need it. We rain checked on the Kaswari.
Yeah, no, you've got to come. Come check us out. We'll do the whole sensory. I don't know. Maybe we can get a bologna Tony. I don't know if your production will be ready. We can do a little bologna Tony dinner.
Okay.
I'll make the bologna. You do the Tony.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely. We'll rain check on that. We'll have to make it happen next year.
All right. Yeah, I'd love that. I'd really love that.
Alex, thanks so much for sharing. Great story, great movie. All right, we'll reconnect soon.
All right. Thanks. It's great to see you. All right.
Great seeing you. All right, take care.